Here I am traveling in America and I find myself sitting in a hotel room and I'm going through YouTube clips when I find myself coming across one that I find quite interesting because it says in big bold letters, why missions doesn't help. And I find that to be an interesting subject. It's been posted by a guy who refers to himself as the friendly atheist. And this is what he had to say.
So when you have these like 1 week mission trips and then you leave and you get your photo op and you feel like you've done a good job, I have to ask, like, have you really helped them? Or was this for them or was this for you? And I think in too many cases, these mission trips are just there for the people who go. It's there to make them feel good about themselves, like they really helped, when I don't think they always do. It's there to, make the church look good, like they're actually doing something beyond the church walls to help. I think if people who go on mission trips, because again, these are well-intentioned people, their heart's in the right place, but if they really want to help, there's a couple things they could do. One is make a serious long-term commitment. If you're going to go to a third world country, stay there for the whole summer. Take a year off and go there and help. That could actually do something meaningful because you have some time to actually get to know them and their environment. That would be beneficial. And wow, I would have a very hard time complaining about a Christian who says, I'm going there. Yes, I want to teach them the Bible and stuff I don't think really helps, but I'm going to be there for a while. I really want to help these people out. And we're going to, help them with medical supplies and building a hospital maybe somehow, or building a school and educating them and tutoring them. That would actually help, but that requires a long-term commitment. And a lot of church mission trips, they don't plan on long-term commitments. But here's a simpler idea. A lot of these mission trips cost thousands of dollars. I mean, these kids have to raise a lot of money, hundreds, maybe $1,000 to go overseas, and they're raising that money. Here's a better idea. Take that money that you fundraise and then put it in an envelope and send it to a group that is already working there long-term. Because those people need things that cost some money. They need those wells to get water. They need supplies and food. And they need people who are going to stay there for the long haul. They really don't need you going there for 1 week so you can get some photos and share them on Facebook. Again, I realize not every Christian's doing that, but a lot of them are. And I've heard this even from Christians who don't like the way mission trips are done at their church. So I'm glad they have their intention is good, their heart's in the right place. But if they're going there for a week or 2 weeks, and especially if they're going there just to spread the gospel, they're not helping anybody. People in the third world are not surviving because they have a Bible next to them on their bedside. What they need is a bed. So let's go out there and actually help them. And again, I think if churches made an effort to send people overseas for a long time, for a serious commitment, it would be very hard for people like me to say mission trips don't actually help.
Okay, so I would love just to take a minute to unpack this if I could. But before I do, I would like to acknowledge that he seems to be quite honest, and I find his questions as well as some of his ideas to be very genuine. But he is an atheist, and as an atheist, he's coming at this from a biased view. And as an atheist, we have never seen atheism do anything to better the lives of man. If we look at atheism employed on a government level, especially in the examples that we have from communist nations. And Karl Marx said that communism and atheism are inseparable. In every single situation in all of history where atheism and communism have been employed, we have seen a spectacular failure. Whether it's Russia, China, Vietnam, Laos, North Korea, Ethiopia, Cuba, in every single instance we've seen communism, atheism, to be nothing but an equal distributor of misery for people. So when evaluating whether a short-term missions trip is beneficial or not, I think that you have to take a step back and say, well, regardless of what you do on a short-term mission, if you're not harming anybody, you're already doing better than the track record for atheism. With short-term missions, though, I think that he brings up some very good comments that I would love a chance just to talk about for a moment, because I've been involved in missions and missions work for more than 20 years. I've lived in China for almost 20 years, working in North Korea and Vietnam and Iran and Iraq. And I know what it's like to be a part of a short-term missions team. Whether it's in Sudan, whether it's in northern Iraq, whether it's in China. I know what it's like to take groups of people on short-term missions as well as long-term missions. I've helped families all around the world be plugged into different countries for the rest of their lives. And I've traveled with teams from America and Europe and other parts of the world that are only coming for a few days. And so the question, a very good one, is what is the benefit, if any, of a short-term mission? Is he right? Is it just a waste of time? Should we just not go? Should we just not buy a ticket, not pay for a trip, not pay for the hotel, and send that money to the missionaries that are already on the field instead? Sounds like a great idea. There's only one problem with that. I don't think it's possible for people to catch the vision of missions unless they go there. Fehrenbach once said, you can fly over a nation all you want, bomb it until eternity. But if you want to conquer an area, you have to do it the way the Roman legions did, by putting your young men in the mud. There's nothing like actually going to the location where people need help. Seeing the people, learning their names, seeing their smiles, sitting at the same table and eating their food. You're not going to get that from a YouTube video or a newsletter. Yeah, you might send funding to help, and you might think, well, that's better than me actually going. I would say it takes more sacrifice to get on a plane and go to an area that you've never been to before. And here's the catch. When you come back, your life is changed forever. Those smiles, those children, those people that you might make a relationship with that will last for the rest of your life, that experience in a different culture, that feeling the heat of the sun or the humidity of the jungle, you bring that back and you become a walking advertisement for the needs of those people. You come back and you're not talking about some video that you watched while eating popcorn and sipping a soda. You're talking about when you were there in the jungle, sitting in the houses with the people. You talk about Anne Marie, somebody that you actually met. You talk about Philippe, a guy that you sat at the table with. You talk about Mr. Wong. You talk about individuals that you got to know personally. And you share that with your friends, your family, your church. And they're not listening to somebody that is talking out of their butt that has never been there before. They're listening to an individual share from their heart. And you're able to connect with people on a completely different level. Short-term missions does more for the person going than it does actually for the people that you meet in the beginning for the initial trip, if that's the only measurement that you actually do. Yeah, you can go and build a school, a clinic, teach for a little bit, maybe hand out Bibles or tracts. But the greatest impact that's going to be made is those people on your life when you're in short-term missions. And then you come back and become this mouthpiece for who knows how long. Maybe you're only motivated for the next 6 months. Maybe you're only motivated for the next year, but maybe you're motivated for your entire life. In fact, a short-term missions trip, when God is involved, has the chance to make you addicted to what God can do in people's lives. So short-term missions trips, don't blow them off. Don't put them down. They're needed and they're necessary. They plant seeds that will never be forgotten, and who knows what the fruit of those seeds will be when they fully mature. Which brings me to the next question, because it's something that he addresses that I think is very necessary to at least bring up just really quickly. If I can only take like another minute or two to explain this, because I think this is really important. When he starts talking about, bringing Bibles, that's pretty useless. Bringing this idea of Christianity to another culture is inferior to building a school or a clinic or helping teach. my question is, why do you think the people in that country need your help? Do you think that they're poor because they're stupid? Do you think that they're not as advanced because they're somehow racially inferior? Do you think that maybe they just chose the wrong government system, and if they only had a better government system, they would do better? Or perhaps it's teaching. They just haven't had a proper education, and without a proper education, these poor saps are not going to be able to make it. I would separate from the atheist in this area because I believe that poverty, as we see on the mission field, is not the result of stupidity, ignorance, or racial inferiority. I believe that poverty on the outside is a reflection of the inside. And without God, without Christ, there's no hope. Without Christ, you don't have the truth. And without the truth, it is impossible to build a society that is able to sustain itself for the betterment of future generations. Without justice, it's impossible for businesses, regardless of whether it's a monarchy or a republic or a democracy. Without justice, it is impossible for so many things within the business world and the education, the academic world to be able to grow without the very things that we get from the Bible. You see, there are people that say, well, you have to, teach a man to fish. I believe sometimes you have to feed a man to teach a man. That's why I believe in a holistic ministry, where we go in to feed people, help people, love people, teach people, build schools, clinics, hospitals. But that will not solve the problem, because the problem is much deeper than the tangible things that you can put your finger on or make a budget over. The things that are the biggest problem go much, much deeper. They're spiritual. And for that, if you bring help and aid without the gospel, you're not helping. That's why you can see all these big rock concerts that raise money for different efforts in Africa, or educational institutions in Haiti, or some sort of new clinic in India. They don't actually change anything. They only put a Band-Aid for a short amount of time, for a very, very short amount of time. They only put a Band-Aid on the problem. That's why the problem keeps persisting. That's why people have to keep coming back asking for more and more aid. Why? Because the poverty still exists. Even if you put in all the money in the world in that area, you would not change it without the key element, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the gospel is needed whether it's a long-term mission or a short-term mission.